Hey everyone, my name is Patrick Beamer and I'm a doctoral student in the Ed Psych and Ed Tech program at Michigan State University. I'm here today with a good friend, Dr. Stephanie Wormington. Dr. Wormington is an assistant professor at the Curry School of Education at the University of Virginia, as well as co-director of the Motivate Lab. So I want to first thank you, Stephanie, for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we're going to talk a little bit about early career faculty trajectories and some of the work you're doing now. So we'll dive right in. So our first question is, how has the transition process been going from being a PhD student to a postdoc to a new faculty member? And what advice would you give to those who are also planning to go this route?
So I think the work that I'm doing is a lot different here. And then going from being a postdoc to an assistant professor is actually pretty smooth, mostly because I was still working with the same individuals here. I was still working with Chris Holloman. And my responsibilities stayed predominantly the same aside from taking on the roles that I needed to as an assistant professor.
Oh.
I think it's been a really natural trajectory for me, though a little bit faster than I was anticipating when I first took this postdoc.
How does the amount of work you do now compare to some of the amount of work that you did in grad school or even as a postdoc?
I feel like there's a similar amount of work. It's just a different type of work that's going on. When I became a postdoc here, I really dove into a lot of different projects all at once. So I was working on multiple projects. I was leading them. It was a different type of work than I had done before. And once I kind of got the feel of that, then I started to be able to manage my time a little bit better. So
your position is a research faculty position at the university. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how your responsibilities for that position might differ from another faculty position at another university or even at your university.
Sure. It was something that I didn't know anything about when I was in grad school. I'd never even heard of a research professor before. So it wasn't where I was expecting to go, but I'm really, really happy that I'm here. Essentially, the difference between a tenure track professor and a research professor or a teaching professor is that all of my responsibilities are related to research. So when you go up for evaluation, if you're a tenure track professor, you're evaluated on your mentoring, your teaching, and your research. For me, in a research professor position, I'm only evaluated on my research. Now, that doesn't mean I just do research. Actually, there's a lot of teaching and a lot of mentoring involved in what I do. It's just not as formal as it might be if I were in a tenure track position. The other thing that's a little bit different is it gives me more flexibility to go out and do the research that I'm really interested in. Because I'm a research professor, I have the flexibility to go on the road for 2 weeks at a time or 3 weeks at a time and actually go and visit sites and help those sites figure out how they're going to implement interventions, try to get a sense of the motivational climate of different institutions. So that's something I'm really thankful for, that I might not be able to do at least as easily if I had set classes that I had to teach here. So it's quite a big difference in terms of what my focus is on. But I think the thing that surprised me the most about it is I still find chances to teach and mentor, which is really important to me. It was one of the things I was concerned about when I was thinking about whether or not a research assistant professor position was the right one for me.
When you were going into this position, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about some of the things you might advocate new faculty to negotiate for once they receive an offer, or even if they plan to go this route. Like, what are some things that students or postdocs might not be thinking about that might be on the table?
Try to negotiate for anything that's going to help you be successful, however you define success in that role. Another thing, though, is to try to advocate for funds that aren't necessarily tied to any specific activity. But you can use those funds for things like going to summer trainings around statistics or learning new methodologies. Having different researchers come in and visit you, being able to pay for their travel is a really useful thing. I would think about, what do you feel like you need to be successful? And then go talk to other folks that are in the department that you're moving into and see what they asked for, see what's really important to them, or they've defined as something that's important for their success. Trying to advocate for getting funds or support for bringing in graduate students to work with you, or undergraduate research assistants, if that's a better fit for your work. That's something that can really jumpstart any work that you're doing, is just having really good people working with you.
What advice would you give to current students or postdocs on the job market that might be looking for faculty positions?
One thing I would really advocate for is to do some searching for yourself before you go on the job market. So think about, what are the positions that you could see yourself in? Are you really set on being a tenure track professor in a research oriented university? Are you open to other types of positions? And to kind of do that search, I would go and talk to folks that are in different positions. So I would have never thought of myself as being a research professor, but I had also never spoken to a research professor. So I didn't know that opportunity was out there. So that's the first step, is just figure out what are your personal parameters for the types of jobs that you think would be a good fit for you. And I would err on the side of being a little bit more open rather than constrictive. The second thing is I would try to be as organized as humanly possible before you go on the job market. So figure out who you want your letters of support to come from, set up an Excel sheet so they know exactly when their letters are due. The other thing is stay hopeful. So the job market can feel really daunting, especially when you have that downtime in between sending out an application and hearing back. There's so many different factors that go into when you hear back from an institution, whether you hear back from an institution. So I would say practice self-care, however that works for you.
Stephanie, that is great advice to end on. And I want to thank you for chatting with me today. And I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks a lot. It's always great to talk to you, Patrick.